Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land within the Shire of Chittering, the Yuwid and Wudjuk peoples. We would like to pay respect to the elders of the Noongar Nation, past and present, who have walked and cared for the land. We acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contributions made to the region. I declare the meeting open at 7:01. Just please note from the gallery that as per Council Resolution 130423, this meeting is being live streamed. But you'd be glad to know they can't see you where you're sitting, so unfortunately they can see us. Item 2, record of attendance, apologies, approve leave of absence and announcement. So in attendance we have all of Council, thank you, and we have all of the staff, so thank you very much. Members of the gallery, we have one, so thank you for the one, but I'm sure there's many online. Apologies, there are nil. Approved leaves of absence, there are nil. Announcement, councillors, you are you have provided your list of attendances and your role as elected member. Are there any additional items to add to your attendance list?
I have one.
Councillor Dewar.
Warrnambool Community Centre meeting on the 12th of August. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Dewar. Councillors, any other? If there's no other, I'll move on to item 3, disclosures of interest. Councillors, are there any disclosures of interest in any matter before Council tonight? There are no disclosures of interest. Item 4, public question time. Responses to previous public questions taken on notice, there are nil. Public question time. There is one member of the public. So this is your opportunity if you want to ask some questions. It's separate to the deputation, but if you've got any questions you'd like to ask of Council, you're welcome to. Okay, thank you. There are no public questions. Item 5, presentations, petitions and deputations. Petitions, there are nil. Presentations, there are nil. And deputations, there is one from Jay Stokes, speaking for Officer Recommendation DS01 0824. Application for mobile egg farm animal husbandry intensive lot 8 Pines Road, Wonnell. Jay Wunkle.
Good evening, councillors. I am advocating for the approval of the proposed development to establish a mobile egg farming business on our family property in Warrnambool. The initiative aims to support a diversified farming model within the Shire of Chittering. It benefits not only our family but also the local community by providing locally grown, fresh, sustainable eggs produced in the local area. It will help support current sheep farming on our property and adapt to potential future changes such as Australia's pending ban on live sheep exports and the necessity to incorporate more sustainable farming practices. The farming model is designed to benefit the environment. This will be achieved by using portable sheds or caravans throughout the farm. This approach allows the land to naturally absorb nutrient deposits without overloading a single area. Moving the sheds between sites enables the land to recover naturally before being utilised again. The eggs produced will be transported to local markets and local customers in compliance with all food safety standards and legislative requirements. I personally have extensive experience in meat retail and in the meat production industry, and I'm well versed in applying food safety standards and committed to delivering the highest quality products to the public. A comprehensive biosecurity management plan, meticulously designed to align with the National Farm Biosecurity Manual for Poultry Production, will be implemented. This plan, which adheres to best practice guidelines, will prevent, identify and control illnesses within the flock. I have consulted with veterinarians from the Department of Health to acquire extensive educational materials on the identification, eradication and decontamination of avian illnesses, ensuring the highest level of health and safety for our flock. I've further cultivated a strong relationship with a major poultry brooder in the Swan Valley, which has been operating continuously since 1961. Drawing from their more than 60 years of experience, I will receive ongoing mentorship and guidance and ensure that the best industry practices are maintained and the bird's health is upheld to the highest standard. A thorough vermin, predator and pest management plan has been formulated to prevent any negative impact on neighbouring properties. This plan involves the trapping, euthanising, baiting and deterring of pests and vermin from the property. The protocol has already been initiated and has already led to a significant reduction in predators within the property. Pest insects will be managed using best practices recommended by DPIRD, which include identifying, trapping and eliminating pest species to reduce the risk of infestations affecting poultry and neighbouring properties. The model structure involves the movement of sites throughout the farm, further mitigating the risk of pest insects causing issues, and minimal manure will be left on any single site. Additionally, the model does not utilise additional compostable materials, further reducing the risk of insect-related issues. The land has been evaluated and exclusion zones from waterways will be maintained. Additionally, exclusion zones from neighbouring properties will also be maintained in accordance with Department of Agriculture guidelines. This commitment to preserving land and water quality is a testament to our environmental responsibility. The low number of birds is highly unlikely to impact land or water quality within the property. We also water stock from water sources on the property, and any potential contamination would be detrimental to our current farming practices and not in our best interests. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions.
I've got a question. So your caravan, so do they, the chickens go back in there at the evening time, don't they? They go back in the roost.
Correct.
Is that an automatic? So does it automatically open and close?
Yeah, so I'm in the process of purchasing two which have automatic closing facilities, and they will be installed on any future caravans.
And then the grazed area, is that an electric fence?
Correct.
So when you set up the caravan, you're fencing off a contained area and the birds are free after opening to walk within that?
Correct, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will have a livestock guardian dog, electric fences and other control measures as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I do. I live a couple of properties along from you, Jai.
Yep.
We had a really bad storm up there probably 3 years ago, where there was massive amounts of runoff and dirt and wash, pretty uncontrollable. Caused us a lot of grief and the neighbours a lot of grief. The runoff into the Brockman, particularly during a summer storm, as I just outlined, concerns me. And what can you do, if you can do anything, to stop that leaching into waterways, chicken manure?
Yep, so by maintaining the exclusion zone in line with Department of Agriculture guidelines of 100 metres from any waterways, if projected storms are incoming, we can move, as the sheds are portable, we can move them further away from any waterways in the instance of any large storms incoming. So as everything is portable, we can move it away from the waterway, but yeah, maintaining that exclusion zone in line with guidelines is the best practice.
Stable fly is a big issue in Gingin for particularly horses. What are you doing there?
Yep, so pest management protocols, which will be trapping, identifying and using insecticides where appropriate, notifying DPIRD if stable fly is identified and becomes a problem. So seeking outside resources where appropriate.
Thanks.
Councillors?
So is that one question with regards to the 1080 baiting?
Yep.
I'm assuming you will or do already have the appropriate permits for that.
Yes, I've already obtained a 1080 or a controlled poisons licence, and we've commenced baiting on the property. All the neighbours have been notified as per procedure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you trying to diversify with all the possible future. So I don't know if you know this question, but is there a difference between cow manure, sheep manure, and chicken manure? Is there any difference if they all three wash into the river? What would the difference be?
There will be a difference in terms of the chemical content, but I'm not fully versed on the specifics. But yeah, I can't fully answer that
I
question.
think chicken manure is high ammonia content.
Okay. Yeah.
That's its challenge. No? Okay, no questions? All right, thank you very much. Well presented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Item 6, applications for leave of absence. Councillors, are there any applications? No applications? Item 7, confirmation of minutes. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendations to confirm the minutes of ordinary council meeting of held on Wednesday the 17th July 2024. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Angus, thank you.
Ross.
That's because I saw your hand move. Thank you, Ross. Twins. Councillor Ross. And Councillor Angus, there you go. Sorted. 1 minute. Councillor Ross, mover. Councillor Angus, seconder. Councillor Ross.
I'm just very satisfied with the standard of the minutes and thank our governance secretary for preparing them.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Angus.
Nothing to add.
Councillors, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? Right, replies, I assume not required. Councillor Ross. Council, no one speaking against the officer's recommendation. I'll declare carried without dissent. 7-0. Next item of business is item 8, announcements from the presiding member. There are 2. The first one is congratulations to the Wannamal Volunteer Bushfire Brigade for winning this year's Hugh Davies Trophy. Thank you to all of the brigades and incident support brigades participating in the event. And perhaps for those who don't know, the Hugh Davies Trophy, do you give us a bit more background on that? Councillor Ross.
Yes, very happily, Mr. President. It's an annual competition between our 5 bushfire brigades. It's a combined training exercise and competition. So it rotates from one brigade to another. This year it was at Mearshade. It's also been at Lower Chittering and here in Bindoon and so on. So the brigades have a set of tasks that are often equipment based, like it's to test their skills in managing the equipment and managing the situations that they might encounter. So they're out and about, out in the countryside, doing these various tasks. An assessor is with each brigade to give them points and take points off, etc. And so it's a competition. And I've had the good fortune to go to the awards part of it most years, missed this year. The competition is tight and it's just a cherished trophy to win. Of interest, the trophy itself is this very sizable steering wheel set on a fairly solid rock, I think.
Wooden plank.
Wooden plank, sorry. And I've forgotten just offhand the story about Hugh Davies, but he was certainly, what I do recall is he was very keen on the training of bush firefighters, because in days gone past, any farmer just grabbed his ute, put a bit of a water tank on it and went out and fought a fire. Hugh Davies was particularly keen that firefighters who are volunteers need to be properly trained, and so this competition came about.
Thank you, Councillor Ross.
But the only thing I would like to add to that is, apart from an actual bushfire incident, the incident support brigade have got no opportunity to train themselves in how to communicate with all the various sectors in a fire. So this then gives them the opportunity in a safe environment to train their skills towards the upcoming fire season.
Thank you. Very enlightening. So congratulations again to the Warrnambool Bushfire Brigade. The second announcement is we'd all be aware that the Taste of Chittering will be held this Sunday at Neshi. This is an annual family-friendly event that showcases our local producers, and it would be great to see everyone there. I'm there. I happen to be MC for some speeches, so anyone wants to be MC for speeches, let me know. Happy to share the responsibility. The other one is the Lottery West grant. We gratefully accepted formally from Minister Sandra Carr last Thursday at Parliament House, which was accompanied by a nice lunch. So that was the pleasurable bit. The photo and the certificate was all about a few minutes, but the lunch was good. So congratulations for us winning that. I think the value of it was
$96,000 towards the Miche playground.
So that is wonderful. That's great support from Lottery West for just under $100,000. So congratulations to us, and congratulations, thanks to the staff for submitting in the Lotteries West grant application. Item 9, reports. Development Services, DS01 0824, application for development approval, mobile egg farm, animal husbandry intensive, Lot 8, Pines Road, Warrnambool. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to grant development approval as per the detail in the officer's recommendation. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation, please? Councillor Ross is a mover. Is that
I'll be second.
1 minute? Councillor Ross is the mover. Councillor Campbell is the seconder. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'm impressed with the thoroughness of the application, of the preparation application process that this involves. This method of egg production and the management of chickens is becoming more commonplace. It certainly gives the birds a better life than they might have had living in cages. And as I say, the thoroughness with which this has been prepared, it seems to me that as many impediments to it, as many of the things that could go wrong have been addressed and management plans put in place to avoid them or mitigate them if they occur. So I'm pleased to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Campbell.
I suppose I appreciate and acknowledge the people who called, especially the neighbours of the proponents. But after some thought, the area is generally designed for agriculture or livestock. So to me, it makes sense that we approve this. I mean, there's policies and procedures in place to mitigate any contamination. And like I said earlier, it's a good way to diversify. So having the 4 tractors and 2,000 chickens, I think, is reasonable, and support the officer's recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillors, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? Anyone wish to speak for? Councillor Curtis.
I'm against it.
Oh, against? Okay, thank you, Councillor Curtis.
Yeah, because why I'm against it, you got one farmer, what's he impacting on the other? But there's one chicken farmer, he's going to impact the other farmer. With stable flies, increased foxes, odours, and the potential pollution of the creek that flows in the Brockman River. So that's why I'm against it, and I'd like to make an amendment if this item is successful.
Well, your amendment's got to be successful first, so do you want to just list your amendment?
Yes.
So perhaps you'd like to read out your amendment. Maybe the screen could be a bit bigger. Maybe the Word document. That's better, thank you.
Yeah, prior to the commencements of operations, contour bunting and cut-off drainage swales and plantings, appropriate nutrient stripping vegetation, the contour bunting. Yes.
Do you want me to read it, Councillor Curtis?
Sorry?
Do you want me to read it for you?
No, I can read it.
Keep going.
Number 9, prior to the commencements of operations, suitable netting shall be installed along all the boundaries of Lot 8 Pines Road, warrantable to prevent neighbouring stock from entering Lot 8 to the satisfaction of the Shire. The netting shall be suitably maintained for the life of the development to the satisfaction of the Shire.
Councillor Curtis, thank you. You're the mover for your amendment. Can I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Dewar. Councillor Curtis, you can talk to the amendment now.
Well, it's only stands that, you know, the bunting and that and the swales will cut off a lot of the pollution that'll go in the waterways, and the netting will stop the neighbours' farms' animals from going into eating the baits that they've got. Stop his livestock from entering their property.
Councillor Curtis, what I might do is read the officer's comments because I guess that you've, and I'll give you another opportunity to speak, but I think it's fair that we read the officer's comments, if I may, only because they've been drafted. Can I get closer?
Can I just, on a point of order, query if these are two separate amendments or altogether one amendment? Because I'd be happy to support one part of that.
Well, that's. I guess you can have that. You can treat it. We can treat it as a complex amendment and split it into two, if it's deemed complex enough. Let's deal with this one first. So let me just read what the officer's comments are. So in regard to the first part of that amendment, the officer's comment is, the above condition would result in the construction of a swale and planning for 1.9 kilometres within the boundary property, given the contours of the land sloping eastwards and southwards. The level of work required to satisfy this condition should be commensurate with the development proposal in order to be fair, reasonable and a proportional planning condition. The levels of waste to be generated from the proposed mobile egg farm and the waste management measures proposed raise no objection from the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation and Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development. The risk of added nutrients from waste entering waterways is a risk that is posed from all agricultural operations, most of which don't require the approval of local government, i.e. keeping of stock on farming land. It also needs to be considered that the risk of two waterways from which agricultural practice is not only from waste directly entering waterways from surface water flows, but from the breakdown of the waste on the land and the dissolved nutrients entering the waterways through the subsurface water flows. Therefore, the effectiveness of contour bunding and cut-off drainage swales should be considered. It is officer's recommendation that the current 100 metre setback distance of the approved area to the waterways is sufficient to adequately protect the health of the waterways, noting this 100 metre distance is supported by DWER. So that's the officer's comment in relation to 8, and I'll follow up on the comment in relation to the second part. The officer's comment reads, it is understood that the purpose of this condition is to prevent the neighbouring livestock from entering Lot 8 Pines Road, Wannawal, and consuming fox baits that the applicant has indicated will be used as part of the pest management. The baiting of feral animals such as foxes can occur on private property. It is the responsibility of each individual landowner to ensure that their own stock and animals are contained within their own property with adequate fencing. The additional condition of netting around the periphery to prevent other animals from entering onto the subject property is not considered to be a sound planning condition that should be applied to this development development approval. With regards to 1080...
That's separate.
Okay, that's separate. So that's the officer's comment. I'm happy to treat that as a complex amendment and split them into two. So if you would please split those into two amendments. Thank you. Just got to get to my bottom of my page on that. It's a long page. Okay. All right. Councillor Curtis. So we'll do these in two parts. We'll deal with the first amendment, and you are the mover of the amendment. Councillor Dew, are you happy to be the mover of the seconder of the first amendment?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we have a mover and we have a seconder for the first amendment. Councillor Curtis, can you just deal specifically with this part of the amendment?
This amendment will stop the pollution of the waterways for sure. You know, it's only 100, like Dave said before, Councillor Dewar said about the flooding a few years back. You know, these things do happen, and chicken manure is pretty strong.
I'm just contemplating something particular, a point. Anyway, I'll deal with that one later. Councillor Dewar.
I mean, I outlined a couple of points that I was concerned with a moment or two ago. Runoff, added vermin. I have my doubts whether any sort of bunding or whatever can stop a big flash flood, summer flash flood. If people are saying 2 or 3 inches rain come down in 15 minutes, contour banks and bunds rapidly disappear. So I guess the big issue is, yes, the contamination in the water system and the probably added vermin, because foxes love poultry.
Just 1 minute. Councillor Dewar, I'm just going to ask you some questions about interest, proximity interest you have. Are you directly neighbouring this applicant's property?
No.
Not. Okay, no problems. Just checking we're not missing the disclosure of interest and proximity. Just to catch that. Thank you, Councillor Dewar. We'll move on. Speaking against, anyone speaking against the amendment? Oh, sorry, thank you. Councillor Angus.
Thank you. Having listened to the officer's comments, I don't consider that that's a reasonable condition to put on this application. And as was said, all animal farming, bird farming, whatever, they all have manure of some description that can sink into the ground or get washed off the ground. We don't make every farmer put bunding and swales up, so I don't think it's a reasonable condition.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Against, yes, if you want. Councillor Ross.
Well, I'm for.
You can go for, okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Hughes.
I'm happy to support the first amendment there, that point 8. It does have scope in there that what the Shire would consider reasonable is outlined there, which is in taking into account the scope of the proposal. We have put conditions on other farming proposals that we've had where there would be runoff near waterways in the past, and I think the local knowledge of adjoining or nearby owners of property in that area, and also Chittering Landcare did have some concerns that some planting may be required along that creek line. So I think that this is a more precautionary approach instead of a down the track. It might have been prudent to have, but the approval wasn't on the condition wasn't on the approval. It was just lost in the comments. So I think we need to capture that with this condition.
Councillor speaking against?
Thanks, Mr.
Councillor
President.
Ross?
I believe that this is an unreasonable amendment beyond what is required by the amount of waste that these chickens will generate. I'm particularly mindful that the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation and the Department of Primary Industries have no problem with what's been put in place in the Office of Recommendation and in the application documentation from the farmer concerned. So I see that this would be an unreasonable imposition, and I don't support the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Ross? Councillors, I'll speak to the matter now. I agree with Councillor Ross. I think it's an unreasonable condition given it's been no sort of adverse conditions have been had or reflection from DWER or DPERD. And we have had other chicken caravan applications, and to my knowledge I can't recall that we imposed any drainage or swale on that property. Now I can't recall whether it was next to a river system, but I do find this as being a bit unreasonable, and I do agree that the manure loading is very minor, and by nature of the caravans, they move around. You can't have your chickens knee-high in droppings, if you like, in one particular spot. So it's going to be spread. And look, as farmers, you can go and spread chicken manure. You're allowed to. You can go and buy chicken manure and you can put it in your multi-spreader and you can spread it on your farm, and you're allowed to. This is no different. It's just been done on smaller patches. If you're allowed to do it by law as a farmer, spread chicken manure, why can't you have a chicken shed spreading manure naturally? So I don't support the amendment.
No, you've
Nothing
summarised
else?
it all. Councillor Curtis, you have right of reply.
Well, I see there's a big pollution problem, and also then this impacts on the neighbour, you know. He's been there farming, now all of a sudden he's got stable flies, foxes, odours, pollution of the waterway. His dog's his livestock's impacted by not putting up the netting, and so the impact on one guy, on one farm to the other, is unreasonable. That's why I don't want to support I don't support the.
Thank you.
I'll support the motion, the amendment, but I can't support the.
That's a second. It's a different item at the moment. We're dealing with your amendment.
Yeah.
So, councillors, that's the amendment, and everyone's spoken for or against as required, and right of reply has been had. I'll put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment? 1, 2, 3. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that amendment's lost 3-4. Councillor Curtis, your next amendment.
And Mr. President, this netting, I think it'll help the neighbour feel that he's.
Sorry. Slight procedural issue. You're the mover. I need a seconder for your amendment. Apologies. Can I have a seconder for the second amendment?
No, sorry. You didn't get my name against.
Sorry.
Let me start that again because I've really messed that up. So, Councillor Curtis, you're the mover of your amendment. Is there a seconder for the amendment? If there's no seconder for the amendment is lapses. Now we got it right. Councillor Curtis, you still have right to speak on the matter. on the substantive motion without either of those amendments, as written in the...
Yeah, like I've said, Mr. President, this is impacting on one farmer and the other farmer. He's doing nothing to the environment or, to his neighbour, impacting his neighbour, but the chicken farmer, well, he's bringing in stable flies, foxes, odours, or pollution of the waterway. So that's my reasoning.
Thank you,
His
Councillor.
lifestyle's been affected,
Thank you, Councillor.
their neighbour.
Are you finished? Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. No problems. Thank you, Councillor Curtis. So that you're speaking against. Anyone speaking for the substantive motion? Councillor Angus.
Thank you. Thank you first to Mr Stokes for your deputation. It was good to hear that in support of the information that we'd already been given. And so having read all the submissions, there was one objector which, yes, he definitely has his own concerns in regards to the stable fly foxes, water contamination and the dead stock. However, we've heard Department of Water and Environment Regulation have assessed the development application and has no objections, noting a 100-metre exclusion zone from the watercourse. They also talk about the low-density mobile outdoor poultry farm planning guidelines, which recommend that adverse impacts on soils, waterways and surrounds can be avoided through good management, and I think the management plans have taken all that into consideration. Chittering Landcare have also highlighted that water quality is monitored twice a year, both upstream and downstream, and if there is to be any increase in nutrient attributed to chicken manure, it'll be recorded and it will have to be acted upon, whether that's with the planting or whatever their recommendation is. In the application, there is a response given to the disposal of dead birds, which the objector had been concerned about. And there's also the issue of the foxes, which can be present at any farm. Yes, they might increase with the chicken farming, but there's measures being put in place to control them. And foxes are not a valid planning reason for refusal. So I'm satisfied that the objector's concerns can be addressed with good planning and compliance to the plans. But keeping in mind the objector, of course, will always have the right to lodge complaints if any issues are not addressed. So I'm in support. Thank you. Thank you,
Councillor Angus. Councillor Campbell, anything from you?
No, I'm good to reset, thanks.
Okay. You've spoken, have you already? No.
To the amendment?
No, we're past the amendment within substantive. Have we?
Yeah, I haven't spoken to the
Okay,
substantive.
great, sorry, thank you.
Although I'm not objecting to the proposal, I do have a couple of questions with regards to the information we were given.
Your questions are of whom?
Probably the Executive Manager of Development Services. It talks about in the management plan the rate of birds that can be expected to naturally pass away over the course of the 3 months, but it only talks about per caravan, well, a caravan of 500 birds. Should that total of deceased birds be times 4 for the 4 caravans? Has that been properly equated for? So it's only talking about 500 birds and 1 to 2 a fortnight.
Well, the rate of bird deaths is a little bit unknown at this stage. What's important is they've actually got management measures in place should birds die, and it's more about the management measures that they've proposed that are acceptable and in accordance with DPIRD's guidelines.
Okay. And yeah, my other concern is around, is it enforceable that if the nutrient levels do rise that something needs to be done?
So in terms of direct action from the Shire, what typically would take place if we do have information and valid information that nutrient levels have increased. We would then have to validate that it's coming from that particular property and not further upstream. And so we could do a compliance check to make sure that the property management plan is being adhered to from what council has potentially endorsed. I guess to categorically say excess nutrients is coming from one particular property may be difficult based on some water sampling of phosphorus and nitrogen levels in the water, but we could use that as a trigger to check up upon the property management plan and its application.
All right, thank you. Satisfied with those answers.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. My turn to speak. I want to thank the applicant for the deputation. I think that was a very concise, one of the most concise deputations I think we've heard in a long time. So you should sort of congratulate yourself for putting that well together. And I think, in my view, the concerns raised by the one objector have been dealt with. You know, I just think if I touch on the fox risk and the baiting of 1080, and I've baited 1080, and you've got to go through permitting and training to bait 1080. But if you're running a guard dog, you're not going to bait around your guard dog because you wouldn't have a guard dog for very long. So the baiting practices that are taught, I think it's Department of Ag or is it DPIRD now? Whoever do it now. You know, you've got to go through the course. Not anyone can get a 1080 permit. So I'm confident that with that training, and obviously the DPIRD are confident people with their training, they issue them licences to bait 1080. So given also that the proponent has a guard dog, I'm pretty sure they're going to be tightly controlling the baiting process. I don't regard that as an issue. I don't think. My view, the stable fly is covered under the management plans. It's mobile caravanning, it's there to spread the load, not to build up of stable fly. Manure, I think the issue in other industries is that the manure builds up in a concentrated area, and that promotes the breeding of the stable fly, particularly around horses and cattle. I guess depends on how often they're moved, but certainly stable horses can be a big issue with stable fly. I just want to touch on a couple of these. I know it's been well documented. Oops, I'm struggling here with my mouse. Right, 1 minute, let me find out where I am. So the odour, again, if you're managing the manure load by moving the caravans around, the odour, there should not be an odour. It should be pretty minimal, if any, if noticeable, I suspect. And considering the buffers that are in place, I can't sort of see the concern from the proponent. And the water contamination, I guess that's the other one, which relates to the loading of manure. And again, there's the 100-metre buffer. So I think the measures in the plans cover the proponent's risk, the perceived risk, I should say, and I think the conditions in the officer's recommendation help cement that the conditions are there for appropriate land use of the mobile chicken caravan. So I support the officer's recommendation. Councillors, everyone has spoken for. We have right of reply from Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. Certainly endorse Councillor King's and Councillor Angus's comments. I think the other comment I would make is that the issues that have been raised, like stable fly, odour, drainage, all of these things, waste management, to me it seems to be as much in the interest of the applicant to successfully manage these as it is in the interest of any neighbouring property or anyone else. The applicant doesn't want stable fly any more than the next farmer does, or any of the issues that have been raised here. So I'm comfortable with the idea that the applicant will manage these things in order to, in fact, run a successful operation.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, you have the officer's recommendation with the attached advice notes. I'll put the officer's recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 for, against? 2. So 5, 2 in support of the officer's recommendation. Moving on to the next item of business. And you're welcome to leave. You don't have to stay the whole duration.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, next section is technical services, TS01, proposed speed reduction along a portion of Great Northern Highway, New Shade. Let me just get to where I need to be. All right, we have an officer's recommendation. Can I have a
Can
mover?
I foreshadow a motion?
Yeah, sure, foreshadow one.
That council notes the speed limit request from Tomahawk Property Proprietary Limited and associated information submitted. It can be worded as it is in the original motion. And point 2, instructs the CEO to redirect Tomahawk to make their request directly to main roads as this is their jurisdiction, not a matter of council. Instruct the CEO to redirect Tomahawk to make their request.
Sorry. Council notes the speed limit?
Notes the speed limit request from Tomahawk Property Proprietary Limited with accompanying traffic impact assessment. You can just copy it from the other one if you want. Just that point 1, the rest of it. Yeah.
I'll just load it in
Yeah.
here first.
And point 2 is instructs the Chief Executive Officer to redirect Tomahawk Property Proprietary Limited to make their request directly to main roads as this is their jurisdiction and area of expertise.
Directly to main road?
Yep. J,
Yeah, whatever you want it to be. All right, just to, yeah, that's fine. So just to clarify a point before I accept this as a foreshadowed motion. So we acknowledge that it's Main Roads WA's jurisdictions to decide, but it's a requirement that it gets referred to by local government. So the proponent has to go to local government to get the local government to request or support on its behalf. It's the process.
I thought, from my understanding at the agenda forum, I thought it wasn't an unusual step that someone would take.
Let's just clarify that, because if what I said is
that's
correct,
wild,
then that's
otherwise,
not a lawful motion. Can you confirm that the process for referrals to Main Roads WA is through council?
Generally, any road within the Shire, they request the Shire and then we forward it to them. They can also go directly to main roads, but then
They can.
request the Shire to support it as well.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
So I just think it would be handled in the normal course of their structure plan and other
No problem.
things.
All right, we'll leave that as a foreshadowed motion then. All right. Got that. With that said, can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Angus. Seconder, please. Councillor Ross. Councillor Angus.
Thank you. Reading the officer comments, it seems that this request is possibly something to do with the difference in cost of a roundabout versus cost of T intersections onto the highway for the future development. And as Councillor Hughes said, this is definitely a main roads future decision, and there won't be any immediate reduction in the speed limit even if we're to support it. Now, whether it becomes a T intersection or a roundabout, you really can't tell me that we're going to be approaching the roundabout at 110 k's an hour. So it's really a moot point whether we support the reduction to 70 kilometres an hour for T intersections or whether it gets slowed to 70 kilometres to go round a roundabout. We need to be focused on road safety, so it's important that we support this as a measure for improved safety surrounding the industrial park and to get more movement in that area. Main roads, when the time comes, will do their own assessments and decision making, so until that happens, I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr President. I agree with the comments that Councillor Angus has just made. This is an in-principle commitment that we might make if we support this. I suspect will not happen if it ever does happen for a few years, because this precinct is still, you know, a fairly early stage of development. It is about safety of access, and certainly cost is obviously going to be a factor for the developers in the longer term. But to me, there is some sense in us making our position public now, so that the applicant knows where we stand as a council and is able to then proceed with whatever representations they will need to make to main roads in the future. So I see a benefit to us stating our position now.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hughes.
I think that the wording of that point 2 suggests that we support the reduction of speed in principle without any information given to us about the options of road configurations. I think that this will save the developer money, but I don't believe that it will provide the highest quality road and intersections. We've seen on the other side of Bullsbrook that the speed limit did not need to be reduced to incorporate heavy vehicle roundabouts, and I believe that this would just be far too much of an impost on the local road users now and into the future when it can be done properly, and main roads should really be the decision maker of that without any influence.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor speaking forward.
Yeah, Mr President, I support the officer's recommendation, but I don't think main roads will listen to us, so I don't know what's the point sometimes.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Curtis, sorry, I'm thinking of something while I'm trying to do something else, and it's not going very well for me. Because I want an amendment. Anyway.
I'll speak against it. Appreciate road safety is very important within the region. Getting us to support it at this early stage, it's a moot point for me. There is Mouchet East Road, which is currently 80. They could easily go off there. But why go down to the Great Northern Highway from 110 to 70? Nothing stops them now from trying to enforce it. It's just a plain open piece of road that's wide enough to take the traffic. But my concern is in a few years' time, if it's not developed enough, they still get their 70 k's an hour, and it's a national road. Doing 70 and 110 when it was 110 is just I don't have support for it.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. I'll speak to the item. So I have an amendment to make to item 2. And whether or not you're for or against the substantive motion, just consider what this amendment does, serves its purpose. So my amendment is to point 2, to change the last sentence, that the word says that with due consideration of the fact that this supports, I want to change the support, change it to referral. because I take on board that we are referring, and whether our referral was actually supported. I'll raise the amendment and I'll talk to it first. So just that one word, change it to referral. And I'll talk to it. That's referral. Consider, yeah. We consider, and it's our referral to consider. It's a referral. I can't see how that's incorrect. Because the fact is we're referring.
But are we considering it or are we referring to someone else to consider?
Well, we're referring it to them. They have to consider it, but we're referring it to them.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think I'm splitting hairs?
Can I say something?
If you think that there's something.
Maybe just some clarification on this point too and what the actual meaning of it is. So our request is that we will support it if Main Roads, when they consider it for precinct 2 and 3, deems it necessary. That's basically what it says. So if Main Roads does this, we've got zero input in what their assessment on precinct 2 and 3 would say would be necessary for access into or out of that area. If we, our concern was mainly the timing of this. If we indicate to Main Road that there is no immediate requirement, they can assess this as part of their assessment when they do precinct 2 and 3, then we would have ticked all the boxes to say that we are happy for Main Roads to do their job as is their intention, but only when they get the structural plans for precinct 2 and 3.
Okay, so the amendment is targeted to remove the word support, to not infer that we are supporting, but we're referring the applicants. That's what the intent of changing the word was in my mind. So I'm the mover of the amendment. Do I have a seconder for the amendment?
Just a query, Mr. President,
Yes.
before that. I think that change doesn't actually indicate whether the Shire does support the possibility or not.
Well, that was my intent.
Right, okay, just clarify.
Just my intent was to remove the word support, as we are just referring the matter on, right? But we do make the comment that our referrals were in principle.
Support it.
Can
Can I ask a further question
Ask
at
away.
this point? Directly at that intersection of Newshire East Road and Great Northern Highway, the speed limit was recently dropped down to 70 there. I didn't see anything come to council for our support of that decision by Main Roads. So they can change the speed limit without our support. It's got nothing to do with us.
just 1 minute.
For us, this is all about the timing. If this gets considered by Main Roads now and they drop the speed limit now, then later on when precinct 2 and 3 gets assessed, that speed limit would already be way slower than it is at the moment and would then impact what intersections
Quality
we
of
go
road.
in.
All
So
right,
it's about the timing.
Council, I'll withdraw my amendment because. All right, I'm still speaking to the matter, even though we're all speaking to the matter. I think that's the biggest concern is Councillor Hughes rightly pointed out that they have within their right, and did check with the Executive Management of Technical Services, that Main Roads, it's in their they're authorised to without consultation of the local government to change the speed limit. And they have done so. I think, importantly, I think as the CEO explained, this resolution seeks to support it only when the precinct 2 and 3 structure planning is occurring. And so at that appropriate time, Main Roads would then be consulted by the proponent in regards to the structure plan and the roading, and then their assessment of the road requirements will be in direct relation to the speed zone they set. So my feeling, this is an aim for the proponent to get this in early, right? And regardless whether we support it or not, there's nothing probably stopping them submitting it straight to main roads. And this, at the very least, tries to put some time constraint on when possibly that consideration by main roads would occur to align with the precinct 2 and 3 structure planning process. I see both sides of this, and yes, I agree that it would not be a favourable outcome if the road speed limit was reduced well before any development occurred. But I hope that my understanding is that this, if adopted, would then lobby main roads into that regard, so that they wouldn't try and drop the speed limit now, but deal with it later. I'm not sure whether it can actually achieve any outcome other than who knows what main roads considers when when they make their decision. So it's a difficult one for me, because I can see both sides of the coin here, and there's valid comments in both. But I will support the officer's recommendation, because I believe the intent is clear to ensure that any consideration of changing the speed limit aligns with the structure planning for precinct 2 and 3, and does not give the ability, well, hopefully limits or delays the ability for the proponent to get main roads to reduce the speed limit now. So that's
Point of order, clarify exactly what the CEO said in response to my last question. What I heard you say was that if this gets in now, when it comes time to consider that precinct, main roads will only consider it at 70 kilometres an hour. Is that what you said?
Main roads, so at the time when they consider precinct 2 and 3, look at the current speeds of the roads.
Which will be 70.
Yes, well,
Exactly.
we don't know what speed they would set, but if it gets to them now, they might assess it, and based on the request, change that. And our recommendation is to wait until
To support at 70 kilometres an hour.
no, to
No.
wait until the structure planning time for precinct 2 and 3 to
and
then
then let
have
roads determine what is the appropriate speed and the appropriate intersections to support that development.
Because it says, consider a speed limit reduction in accordance with the request from Tomahawk.
But it doesn't say that. Yes, it does say that.
During the investigations towards the further development of precinct 2 and 3.
I thought many times how to write that officer's recommendation without having that in there and making it being, we're referring this to main roads, but on the basis that we're referring it, we're not either. But
That
so
is my intent of my foreshadowed motion, that we have no position on it except for referring.
And can I also just clarify that we have had advice from main roads during my investigations about this matter that they would only consider a speed reduction with the local government email from us. So we do have to either support or not support it. And
well, if you say, well, hang on. With that said, if we don't support it, they're not going to consider it. That's what you're saying.
no,
They'll have to
they
do it to
will
the
then
high
consider at their own timing.
Oh, okay.
Just another wording possibility, pardon me. If it began with following the request from Tomahawk, which the council instructs the CEO to request main roads to consider a speed limit reduction. Because
What it already
that's more
says.
general, whereas the way it's worded now, it's as though we only want 70 to be the option. It could be that it might be 80 or 90 or some other speed. So if you turn the wording around, it might look less like we're saying we exactly want 70 because that might not be the position. I think the principle is about a speed reduction, and it's within the competence of Main Roads and the authority of Main Roads to actually make the decision on how much of a reduction there should be, if there should be one or if it should be roundabouts.
So there is another way you can write, let's just see whether this works. Instructs the Chief Executive Officer to request Main Roads to consider the speed limit in accordance during investigations towards further development of precinct 2 and 3. So you can drop out Tomahawk. So you can drop out all reference to
In
Tomahawk.
accordance with exactly what they want. That's what they're asking us to endorse.
So maybe we work on this amendment again.
Yes.
Well, let's workshop this. So I think 2, just paste in 2 as you've written it, but we change the words. Instructs the Chief Executive Officer to request Main Roads to consider the speed limit. That's right, just say consider the speed limit. I've just lost my everything. During investigations towards the further development of precinct 2 and 3 of the Mouchet Industrial Park.
Because, to be clear, I was nearly killed in a high-speed car accident, and my intention is
So-
a safer road.
So with that wording, it doesn't specify a reduction, doesn't specify an increase, but it does specify with the development of precinct 2 and 3. So I think that possibly covers what you're trying to achieve in your foreshadow. So I'll move that amendment. Can I have a seconder for the amendment, please, Councillor Ross? Councillor King was the mover. I was the seconder. Okay, so further to our discussions, non-discussions. So the intent of this is to restrict or refer the matter to Main Roads to consider the speed limit when they consider the development of precinct 2 and 3. So that's when we're saying a speed limit consideration should be undertaken, and we don't make any reference to when or to Tomahawk, and we make no reference to a reduction. So we leave it entirely up to Main Roads to assess as part of precinct 2 and 3. So that's the intent of the amendment. Let me just check. Get rid of the in principle, so just stop. So instructs Chief Officer to support Main Roads to consider the speed limit during investigations towards the further about precinct 2 and 3. Yep, stop at Park.
Can we have
Sorry, yeah, just delete that.
speed limit and road design?
Okay, sorry. Where do we put that bit? We just need to fix that a little bit.
Is it a third point?
Due consideration of the fact that this is not an immediate requirement.
Do you want to just read that out for me?
Make it a third point.
I think it'd be better tied up in the one, don't you? Then it's all tied together. Not
Can
immediate.
you have
Let's just say with due
Speed limit and
consideration
road
that this is
design.
not an immediate requirement.
Yes, okay, that covers that. All right, I think that deals with that. So again, it deals with confirming, they will assess the speed limit during those precinct 2 and 3 development discussions with consideration this is not an immediate requirement. I think that covers it.
would you
I
consider
think-
putting and road design after speed limit?
Just leave it
That's
like that.
part of the structure planning process that they would do.
This is all related
Need
to speed limit.
though.
If we start venturing into design, then we're moving
Well, we're not
away
suggesting a design.
No, but if we start referencing design, the original motion had nothing to do with design, it was speed limit. So with the permission of the seconder, satisfied with that
Well-
wording, Councillor Ross?
Does, with
Yes.
all due respect, consider the design because it's proposing a T-junction instead of a roundabout.
We're not considering that. We only authorisation is around the speed limit. So, look, I think it serves the purpose without being, without getting ourselves tied up. So I think I spoke to it enough, Councillor Ross, the seconder.
Thanks.
Anyone speaking against the amendment? Councillor Campbell?
The intent is still, we support it, although we've reworded it to be very neutral. there's still that perception that we are proposing that the speed limit will be dropped. This should be the developer and Main Road sorting out their issues. Every time we've dealt with developers, I think we've come off second best every time. So there's a financial intent there, and that's what they're trying to capitalise on. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Hughes?
I believe that there is a direct correlation between the consideration of a speed reduction and considering changing those intersections from roundabouts to T-junctions, which are far more dangerous, hence why they would need to reduce the speed. I believe that the roundabouts would be a very substantial improvement in the safety of that road, and that is Main Road's original proposition, which is why they're requesting us to consider changing it.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes, councillors, any further debate? I'd write a reply. I guess the only just to reiterate, I think the reworded item 2 serves the purpose. It doesn't tie us in to a speed increase or a speed reduction. It's more so to a speed limit assessment when precinct 2 and 3 planning occurs, and not now. I think that's what it states, and for me that's slightly better wording than what we had originally. So with nothing further to do, I'll put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against, 2, so carried 5-2. So we have a new substantive motion, and that deals with me. And Councillor Dewar, do you wish to talk to the substantive motion?
No, nothing really to add to that. Thanks.
All right, Councillor Angus, you were the mover.
I don't think I have anything more to add. Thank you. I think we've said it all and discussed it well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Angus. Councillors, I'll put the amended officer's recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4. Against? Carried 4-3. Thank you. Next item of business is corporate services, CES01, list of accounts paid for the period ending 31st of July 2024. Councillors, you have the officer's recommendation to receive the said accounts. As per the attachment, can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Curtis. Seconder. Councillor Campbell. Councillor Curtis.
Mr President, I'm going through the accounts here. I support the officer's recommendation, but I'm going through the accounts. I come across flowers, $660. I think we should do something about that. This day and age, with all the money that we need to pay our debts, I think we can do without some flowers for a few years.
Perhaps you might want to ask the Chief Executive Officer what the flowers are for, I don't know.
Well, it says here it's for, I lost it now, 23-24 fortnightly flowers, $660.
Can you ask a question? Otherwise I'll have to ask one later.
Mrs CEO, $660 for flowers, is that reasonable?
I think he's asking, is that a fortnightly expense?
It's the annual expense for our fortnightly flowers that gets brought to the front counter and to the library.
So it's the annual expense for the fortnightly flowers?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'm not a flower lover, but it's a lot of money for flowers, isn't it?
So perhaps ask a question of the Chief Executive Officer. The ordering of flowers falls within your operational control, does it not?
Yes.
And the only way it wouldn't fall under your operational control if council moved a separate motion somehow not to spend money on flowers and relate it to the budget. Is that not true? So we can't, because it's an operational matter for which we have no control. However, we're the custodians of the budget. So if you phrase the amendment carefully, you could theoretically put a motion up at another junction to ban flowers by controlling the budget somehow. Yeah, I guess that's just...
Yeah, I don't mind plastic flowers.
I'm just, if you want, you can't do anything now, but that's possibly your only tact.
With due consideration that I have the responsibility to create a nice working environment for my staff and our visitors.
And I'm sure that would be a compelling argument at the time if there was a motion brought up. All right, I just want to be clear that we can't. It's an operation.
Well, it's a lot of money. Anyway, I'm just going through the list here. There's $46,000 for... we're going through a lot of money here. We're going $900,000 a month. That's what can we do to reduce all this?
So is that a question?
Sell more cans?
I want to hear the answer.
$12 million budget, $12 million spent.
I mean,
I want to hear the answer.
I'm just worried that we're spending a lot of money that we might not, can cut back on.
So, Councillor Curtis, I guess the time for which to challenge the budget is a budgeting time. So perhaps you should savour these concerns of expenses to when we do the budget considerations, and then table them at that point.
So there's nothing much we can do about the spending at the moment.
Well, you could bring a motion, as I said, but it would have to be targeted specifically around the budget, which is in our control. I'm sure there'll be some challenge from administration, but you could try it if that's what you wanted to try. Not supporting the try of it, but that's his options are open.
Can I just make a general statement on our budget? Our budget is approximately $13 million. So if you just delineate that over 12 months, we should be spending about 100 and something, well, 1.1 million a month. And that is, so our role is to implement the budget and implement the projects that council have given us to do. And sometimes there's a road payment coming through, and sometimes there's a building payment coming through, and sometimes there are smaller payments. So this for me was a smaller month.
Good, yep.
Okay. Councillor Curtis, thank you. Finished. Councillor Campbell?
Nothing to add.
Thank you. Anyone speaking against or for?
Or not speaking for
No
or
one's
against.
speaking
I just have a question.
Mr. Hughes?
Vehicle CH1254 from the construction team, is there a reason why the fuel card purchase on that car is considerably higher than the rest of the cars? What car is that? What vehicle?
That's a fuel pod, Mr. President.
It's a fuel pod that we
Okay.
fill up to use on site to
Right.
fill up other vehicles.
Yes.
Pod,
Not a pond.
not a pond.
Thank you.
Councillors, anyone wish to speak against? Anyone speaking against it, full stop. Councillor Curtis, you've right replied.
Nothing to add, Mr. President.
Council, if no one speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried 7-0. Next item of business is CS02. No, that is not it. What's going on here?
Yes, that's right.
It is that. Okay, all right. Without a mouse, I can't move quickly. All right, next item of business CS02 0824 Wildflower Ridge Method Evaluation Deposited Plan 422538. Essentially, you have an officer's recommendation that Council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to seek approval from the Minister to change from unimproved value to gross rental value. That's essentially it in a nutshell. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? I'm happy to move. Can't even find myself here. Seconder, please, Councillor Ross. Really not much to add here, but it's part of due process that properties, as they're developed, move from unimproved value to gross rental value, as we've done in the past. So it's just following due process, and I support the officer's recommendation. Councillor Ross.
Agree, Mr President, and I think it's heartening that when the residents were consulted, no one was concerned about the proposed change. It is a natural progression as development occurs.
Thank you. Councillors, anyone speaking against? Anyone want to speak for? Councillor's right of reply is not required, so I'll declare carried without dissent, 7-0. Next item of business is CS03, 0824 Maryville Estate Method Evaluation Deposited Plan 425766. This is very similar to the previous recommendation that we seek authorise the Chief Executive Officer to seek approval from the Minister for Local Government to change from the rating basis from unimproved value to gross rental value. Can I have a mover for the Officer's recommendation? Councillor Campbell. Seconder, Councillor Angus. Councillor Campbell.
I suppose same reasons as you stipulated before, Councillor King, so yeah, happy to support it.
Good. Councillor Angus.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Councillors, is anyone speaking against? No one speaking against. Right reply not required, I assume. No one speaking against the officer's recommendation. I will declare carried 7-0. Should have carried that on, shouldn't I? Too early. All right.
If I can just make note that we did not have the monthly financials ready this time. We will present them next month.
Next item is Chief Executive Officer, CEO 01, Work Health Safety Statistic Report for July 2024. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation in front of you. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation?
I'll move it.
Councillor Campbell. I think Councillor Angus was a close second. Councillor Campbell.
I'll accept the reports. There's just one comment that I'd like to make and make a recommendation. There's a couple of horse signs that have gone up across Lower Chittering for the bridle trail. It appears that I'm requesting that somebody actually do some training on how to erect the posts, because there must be some kind of training to show them how to sink posts, because there's a ball of concrete sitting on top of the ground and a little bit in the ground. So you can imagine you can walk up and you can push the post over. And this is not the first time, it's happened over the past 18 months. I'm not too sure if it's post-hole digging training, or there must be some kind of standard that these posts have to be sunk to. And I appreciate the ground is hard, but there is some kind of education that's required to get these signs erected correctly.
Did you take a photo?
I've got one is right outside my driveway of all places to put it, and that's the one that I can literally shake.
Okay, well, those are the yellow
Yeah, the
signs
new
on
ones.
the roadside, not the
yellow ones.
temporary ones.
No, the new yellow one's horse. What's it?
Horse crossing.
Horse crossing. So it's literally gone up on Friday on my driveway entry. The one that's loose.
Not that you wiggled the post.
Or declare proximity interest.
All right.
So just
We'll investigate whether
if
it's
you
a
could,
skills
please.
issue or an equipment issue,
yeah,
thank you.
and it's been past 18 months. I thought maybe once or twice, but I mean this has just brought it to a head.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Anything in particular relating to the Work Health Safety Statistic Report?
All good.
All good on that one. Thank you.
Safe working
Councillor
environment.
Angus.
Yeah, same, happy to receive the favourable report, and hopefully after the CEO's leave, next month's report will be as favourable.
Okay, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? No one. Right of reply is not required. No one speaking against the officer's recommendation. I'll declare carried without dissent, 7-0. Next item of business is CEO 02 Wolga Annual General Meeting 2024 voting delegates. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation that the Chief Executive Officer advise to the West Australia Local Government Association that the voting delegates and proxy voting delegates as listed delegates for 2024 Annual General Meeting are as listed. Voting delegates, Councillor King, voting delegates, Councillor King, Councillor Angus, and proxy voting delegates, Councillor Ross and Councillor Hughes. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hughes. Seconder, Councillor Ross. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, the delegates are the President and the Deputy President, and I'm happy to nominate myself as a proxy as I'll be attending the conference.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Ross.
Nothing really to add. It's a fairly straightforward matter.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hughes, right of reply not required. That being the case, no one speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried without dissent, 7-0. Next item of business, CEO 03, end of year corporate performance report 2023-24. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to accept this corporate performance report. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Angus. Seconder. I'm happy to Councillor Ross, okay. Councillor Angus.
Thank you. I'm happy to accept the end of year corporate performance report, and having read it, found it to be very informative and happy to see improvements since the previous time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. I think to remind ourselves and our community that the report is also a kind of public accountability document. It allows our community to see what's happening, how it's going, etc. So I think it's a very valuable document to have.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, anyone speaking against? Anyone wish to speak for? I'll just make one quick comment. So yes, it was good to see that there was a 4% improvement in 4% improvement in the corporate side. So that was good. Let's hope that continues. I guess we're now hit 87, I think the number is. So it will be more challenging to get improvements at that level than it is at lower. So we'll see whether these can be maintained in the long term, and I look forward, at least for next year, receiving the next metric to see how we're tracking. So, but good work on the improvement in performance to the CEO and all the staff. Councillors, right of reply not required.
No, thank you.
If no one speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried without dissent, 7-0. CEO 04, Reconciliation Action Plan Roadmap, 2024-2026. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to endorse the Reconciliation Action Plan and instruct the Chief Executive Officer to establish a reconciliation working group. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation, Councillor Ross? Seconder? Councillor Curtis. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. I think this is an important and a timely initiative to be underway. as a council, we first flagged an interest in this a few years back now. We know from existing historical documents that this area has been home to Aboriginal people for a long time, and across Australia it's 60,000 years from archaeological records. So we have begun, so we know that this is the home of the Yuwut and Whadjuk peoples. Yuwut most of the Shire, Whadjuk at the southern end of the Shire. One of the things that we need to bear in mind, this officer recommendation talks about 3 years, and it's a roadmap. It's really still the beginning of the process. In our work, in any work with Aboriginal people, there is a need to be respectful of their cultural perspective on time, which is often quite different to a Western European perspective. So we need to allow this process to progress much more slowly than other community processes that we might follow. So I'm comfortable with the timeline that's there and with the knowledge that we still probably won't be at the end of the process at this stage because this is the roadmap. I'm also appreciative of the work that's been done to date that's mentioned in the officer's report of the steps that have already been taken. In thinking about this tonight, I was mindful that among the things that a reconciliation action plan will look at is the history of the people. And in this Shire, many people will be aware that this council in the late 1990s funded the writing of the settlement era history of this Shire. So in 1998, the council committed net value of $10,000 to the preparation of this document. And I gather from talking to people around the country, around the Shire, that this is regarded as a very good history of the European settlement era of this Shire, and that's important to capture. My thinking is that it's now time for us to do what we can do to pick up the pre-colonisation culture, people, history, etc. of this place, knowing that there is some and that it wasn't always happy. So I think it's really important now that we do move on this initiative so that we can be more thorough in dealing with our own history, and that we can do that in a respectful way by working with Indigenous people who have a connection with this place, who are Yuwut or Whadjuk, and who, as the report indicates, have the authority to speak on behalf of the people. So I'm very much in support of this initiative.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Curtis.
Yeah, I concur with Councillor Ross there, because as a member of the Historical Society, we've got that book, that information, and we haven't got any, I don't think we've got much information on the traditional owners of the area, so it's very important for the history to be looked into in that regard. So I think it's very important to have this reconciliation plan, accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Council, is anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation?
I am.
Councillor Dewar.
I can't support this officer recommendation for a few pretty good reasons. First of all, I don't even know what a reconciliation action is, quite frankly. Anyone wants to tell me exactly what that is, I'm all ears. If we don't know what it is, then how on earth, secondly, do we implement it? How do we implement it? I also lived in the Shire our family's been in the Shire for 70 years, and you know, I'm not that familiar with the local Indigenous people. You know, what happened a long time ago was really, really bad in many cases, but you know, I'm not sure why it's particularly our job to try and resurrect things that happened a long time ago. They're also a minority group, and you know, I can't quite understand where this is all coming from.
Thank you, councillor Dewar. Anyone else wish to speak for? Councillor Ross, you have right to reply.
Thanks, Mr. President. There is quite a large amount of information available on websites from Reconciliation Australia about what a reconciliation action plan is, so that's not difficult information to gather, and the briefing notes that we've received with this provide a lot of information. I am very uneasy with the comment that our Aboriginal people are a minority group. Yes, they're 2.7% of our population and possibly not much more than that at a national level. But there are two things that I think are far more important than their number. One is that this is their home. Any of us in this room, I think, if we go back 4 or 5 generations, can name another country that our ancestors came from. For Aboriginal people, there is nowhere else. It's only ever been Australia for 60,000 years. And I guess the other point I would raise is that whether someone is a minority group or not, we're all human beings, and we all have a right and a need to be respected for ourselves and for the life history and the cultural history that we have that makes us who we are today. And I think, as Councillor Dewar said, certainly there have been some fairly ugly, tragic, criminal things done in the past, and they're documented in this book and in other places in the Shire. Yes, we don't need to rake it over in a destructive way, but any truth-telling process will tell you that until stories are shared and understood by each other, relationships don't heal. That's what reconciliation is about. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. All right, councillors, I'll put the officer's recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? Against? 7-1, carried. Sorry, 6-1. Thank you. You two were quicker than me. Item 10, reports of committees, there are nil. Item 11, motions of which previous notice has been given, there are nil. Item 12, questions from members without notice. Are there any questions?
I have 4.
Sorry. Okay, let's go.
This might be for the Executive Manager Technical Services. Wandina Road and Machete East, there's that road on Wandina where we've widened it. And we've done some remediation work. There's witches' hats there. I think the witches' hats have been there for probably 2 months. Are the roadworks finished, or are we still doing some work there?
So your question is, are the roadworks finished, and when will the...
Yeah, are the roadworks finished? We'll start with that one.
Are the roadworks finished? First question. First part 1A.
Works are not fully complete, Mr. President.
Yeah, is it complete or not?
No.
Not complete. Not complete.
Okay.
Second part, when are the witches' hats going to be removed?
Well, when will it be completed? And, yeah.
This financial year, we have some budget, so we are working on that because we are doing the Wandina Road 1 kilometre. Around that time, we want to do this as well.
So those witches' hats are going to stay there for another year?
We are planning to do a seal and then remove it as soon as possible. Because of the rains, there's a bit of a delay.
Yeah. Thank you. The other one, I have to declare interest, so it's the good old transport depot on lot 199 Wandina Road. So I think Councillor King and Councillor Angus were part of the original motion, which changed the basic raw material zoning to a transport depot.
Oh, that's the... yes, that's the one...
The Wainwright Transport Depot, Powder Bark Road and Wandina.
Roughly.
So,
I was thinking of a different one, but...
yeah. So pretty much bordering rural residential. It's been sold to a new owner. So there were significant conditions put against that, and we discussed it with Jake a few months back. So with the new owner moving in, it's only meant to have agricultural equipment stored on there. And at the moment now we have anything from mining equipment to caravans to any other person's junk stored on there, right on the boundary of the residential area, rural residential area. I just want to know, do the new owners, are they aware of the council resolution and the caveats around what they can store there and what they can't store?
So I can respond to this one. On the original council, the original council approval was based on an attached document that indicated that agricultural equipment will be amongst the items that can be stored there. The photos in that same document was that digger that is there at the moment and some of the other items that you would consider to be mining equipment. The photos of those actual items in the same document that was approved by council at the time. So with the new landowners, we will be writing to them to ask them to implement the planting that was in the original approval, because that wasn't done by the previous owner. So we have been in contact with the new owners to ask them to commence that planting, because it was a clear list of plants that should be considered and planted in that area.
Thank you. So when I brought this to your attention probably 6 months ago, when the old owners were meant to implement the planting, obviously that wasn't enacted on, or there was no instructions to the owner to...
There was an instruction. The issue was that it was in the middle of summer and you don't plant in the middle of summer, so it was supposed to be in the winter time, and that's why we're raising it with the new owners right now, to ask them to start the planting while it's still wet season.
Okay. So I'll come back to you on the agricultural equipment, because everything in the resolution doesn't reply to it. And when you try to look up for all the corresponding attachments, they all seem to be have disappeared.
You know,
So
we've gone through the actual hard copy file and found everything.
If you could share that, that would be very good.
Sure.
And with regards to the guy living in his caravan on the property now, is that something allowed to on a transport depot?
No, that's not allowed. That's a compliance matter for us to handle.
Okay. Will he be asked to vacate as soon as possible?
We will handle him, yes.
And live in his car.
So I guess your question is,
So we are dealing with him from a compliance perspective,
already?
yes.
Thank you. If you could share all the documents with me, the hard copies, because, yeah, like I say, a lot of the stuff's missing off the website.
What year was it?
2017.
Okay.
Thank you. No more questions?
Item 13, new business of urgent nature introduced by decision of the meeting. There are, Neil? I want to go back to, I want to take a step back for a minute, if I can, to announcements. There's one thing I missed off my announcements. Yeah. Chief Executive Officer is on leave from which date to which date? Can we,
From the 22nd
from the 22nd?
of August.
August?
So I'll be attending a function on the Saturday, the 31st of December. So next week I will, from the work week, I won't be in the office.
My announcement is that, and then clearly in your absence,
Jake Wisser will be the acting CEO.
Jake? What? Okay. All right, okay. Thank you for, I should have made that announcement earlier on. All right. I was right at the end. Item 4, meeting closed to the public. There are nil. Item 15, closure. Declare the meeting closed at 8:44.